Hey everyone, welcome to the HireMyVA Team and Business Building Podcast, where we help you to reclaim your freedom through hiring and thriving with virtual assistants without breaking the bank. That means your bank, which is the most important bank. I'm Dave Braun, and I'm here with my partner, great business mentor and coach, great friend, which is the most important thing, of course.
Yeah.
Larry Broughton. Hey, Larry, how are you doing?
Hello, handsome Dave. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm ready to get into another one of these awesome questions.
Yeah, we missed a week last week, so it's good to be back in the saddle with this. Let's get going on this.
You ready? Okay.
All right, let's do it.
All right. So this was a great question. My
Okay.
team member's performance is not meeting my expectations.
Uh-oh.
And not good. And I think it's time to put them on probation. So how to put an employee on probation? How do we put a team member on probation? Let's bandy that. Is that a word, bandy? Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about it. Yeah. Well, this is always a good conversation, I think. But before you put somebody on probation, let's make sure that the team member knows what the expectations are. You said they're not meeting your expectations, right?
Right.
They know what your expectations are. Because if people don't know what your expectations are, guess what? They're never going to meet them. So I'm always a proponent of asking yourself first, do they know what's expected of them? Have I communicated effectively with what I need them to do? Have they been trained properly? In today's kind of employment crisis, we hear this over and over again, that team members are thrown in to do a job, Dave, and they're not even trained on it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yet we expect them to be friggin' rock stars. And so let's ask ourselves that first. And then, of course, you need to make sure the organization has some kind of progressive disciplinary action prior to putting them on probation. You know, many places, they go on probation for some period of time. We call it an introductory period in our companies, Dave. You know that, right? Because it's time for me to get to know them and them to get to know us, that kind of thing, right? It's usually 90 days. But oftentimes the first couple of disciplinary actions come from just having an informal conversation with them. Are you doing that first, right? And then usually it's a couple of verbal warnings and coaching sessions is what we try to call them before it gets into the written, right? And then probation, right? Typically probation is that last straw before you coach them out of the organization. So I would say this, Dave, before you even get diving into this, if you've got somebody on the team and your first step is, hey, they're not meeting my expectations, Dave, and then you put them on probation, that is not creating a culture of learning and trust. So I think that we need to say that first. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I like what you said. You have a progression, and really what you're talking about is having some kind of a process.
Yes.
And I think the best time to do that is when you don't need it, especially for something like this. So think about it ahead of time. Think about a process of how you would go about progressively, gradually moving somebody, out of your organization / improving their performance, right?
Well, that's the key, right? Let's coach them up or coach them out.
Right.
Ideally, you want them to stay in the organization. But we got to think about this, that our team members are humans, which means they're relational beings, right?
Right.
And we have to ask ourselves, have we been making deposits into their emotional bank account prior to us and going up and slapping them around the head and shoulders, proverbially, about their performance? If the only feedback they're getting from you is negative reinforcement, you're not doing that right. Oh, you're screwing up again. You're not going to have the emotional bank account to tap in to them, to bring the hammer. So catch people doing things right first, right?
Yeah, if you've got, and I've been down this path where it's like I've gotten so frustrated with somebody that I emotionally have gone down the path of I can't put anything into them. I can't, or I feel like I can't give them attaboys. I can't even look for something good. You get to a point where everything you're seeing is a negative.
Yeah.
You can't go down that path. So especially, I think this whole thing starts there, even before their first day working with you, right?
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, I love that the idea of investing in them.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we have another aspect of it. So hopefully you've got your policies, or at least some kind of a process that you're gonna go through and stick with, right?
Yes, for sure.
And the other thing I think we talk about is don't be afraid of it, right? And because I've had to put some folks on what we would call a PIP, or a performance improvement plan.
Right.
And sometimes it works, but other times it doesn't. And and a lot of times though, it can work. And you've got to make sure that you go into that thinking it is going to work, right?
Yeah.
And that you're doing the best thing for the person and the organization. In fact, I learned something just recently about this, is that one of the things that you've got to decide in your mind is that this going through this process is the best thing for the person and the organization.
Yes.
Right. Because there is a cost to letting people go.
Yep. Yeah. And make sure that the team member knows that you're doing this for them, to help them and to help the organization. Right. And so I would think, Dave, so like tip number one would be something like making sure that you've had at least an informal conversation with them, and that you've gone through your progressive disciplinary steps prior to the conversation of probation happening for them, and let them know that I'm spending time with you to coach you up. But here's the reality. When you use the word probation, you need to let them know that if we don't get this straightened out during this probationary period, the next step is coaching you out. You need to be that direct with somebody. Right. And the way I try to frame it in my mind is, if it's not working and I feel like, listen, I've invested a lot of time and energy in getting them coached up, the next step is, so that I don't feel bad about it and they feel good about it, is we're going to set you free. Because sometimes it's just not a great fit.
That's very true. Yeah.
So I think that's the first one I would recommend then.
Yeah. And when you have that first discussion, right, I mean, it shouldn't come to them as a surprise. If it does, then you've got to go back afterwards and think, okay, what should I have done differently?
Yeah.
Right. So use this as a way to improve, your own process.
Yeah. Like, do I have the right person? Could I have communicated better? Do we have standards in place that they understand of what's expected of them in their job?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What would be next, we think?
Well, the second thing is, of course, you've had your informal discussion where you've kind of talked to them about it, but at some point you're going to have a formal meeting, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to want to schedule that ahead of time and make sure that they know what the purpose of this is, so that this is what you're going to be talking about, their performance, right?
Yeah. I don't think it's a good idea to say, hey, let's meet at Thursday at 4:00, or Friday, or even worse, Friday at 4:00. Because then all week they're thinking, what the hell's going to happen on Friday at 4:00? No, let them know.
Yeah.
You don't need to say, hey, I'm going to talk about putting you on probation, because they just want to talk about the ways that we can help you perform better in the organization.
Yeah. And don't send them an email, or don't send them an email on Friday afternoon and say, hey, we're going to talk about it on Monday. And then you're stewing all weekend, right? You need to, when you schedule it, it needs to be very quick. After you're telling them that this is what it's about, right?
Yeah. Right.
So what do you think, Larry, is not the third point on
this?
I
mean, now that we said we've got the meeting scheduled, when it is time for the meeting, you've got to do some, as a leader or the manager or the owner of the organization, you got to put a little bit of your own homework in. I think draft a PIP, a performance improvement plan, because you're going with a draft. Here's what we're going to do to coach you up. Here's where we're falling short. Here's the commitment that we're making to you to get you where you need to be, so that you are an absolute rock star in the organization. I oftentimes come armed with stories and anecdotes of people who've been in a similar position in the past.
Oh, yeah.
Who have then overcome whatever challenges they're having, so that they can see, well, this is not an insurmountable obstacle. This can be done, right? So if you can come with a draft performance improvement plan and some anecdotes or real world stories on how they can overcome it, I think that would be really good. But part of the performance improvement plan are steps that they need to take, standards they need to meet, and a time frame within which the improvement has to be seen.
Right. And of course, as we talked about, Yeah, and it has to be seen. And then you've got to really definitely emphasize, like you had mentioned before, the consequences. Hey, we're coaching you up, but if this doesn't work, or you'll be coached out, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's important to let them know that it really is up to them, right? You're going to do everything as the leader of their organization or as their manager. You're going to do everything to help them in the process, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. But a key to this, Dave, though, this performance improvement plan, and I can't overemphasize this enough. You're walking in with a draft, but it has to be a collaborative plan.
Right.
They have to be participating in this. This way, they're going to feel much more vested and invested in the process. And they're gonna know. You need to go into this asking questions. Well, why do you think this is happening?
Mm-hmm.
Have we communicated effectively with you? Do you know what the standards are? Do you have the tools to do the job? Do you have the training to meet these standards? Right. And so this way you make it collaborative. So ask them to participate in this. They may say, no, actually, this is great. This is exactly what I need. This is going to be very helpful, but oftentimes, more often than not, they're going to want to tweak it a little bit. Okay. So I think that's it's an important thing, but you need to make sure that this fits your culture and core values as well. On the other side of this, I've seen this end up being more often than not, Dave, a very positive experience for people because you're setting as the standard. Hey, we're a learning organization here. And just because you make a mistake or two, you're not going to be thrown out of the organization. And it can really build loyalty to that you've given somebody a chance, right?
Absolutely.
So that this is why I'm saying this so that you look at this as that this can be a positive experience. This doesn't have to be this heavy, dour, frightening experience for anybody.
Right.
Because if it's really that bad, they probably shouldn't be in the organization, besides your own natural nervousness going into it. Right. But if it's really that serious, maybe probation's not the right course. So.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point. There are some things that hopefully you are up front with your team members at the beginning of their coming to work with you that, hey, here's some things that, it's immediate termination, right?
Workplace violence, stealing.
Yeah. Lying, all that kind of stuff. Right. So you got to be up front with them. Right. So there are some things that it's like, hey, there's no probation that they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you're up front with them on that. So here we're talking about working on a performance improvement. Okay. Yeah. So we've talked about, let's see, what have we gone through? We've gone through making sure you've got some informal discussions ahead of time. So it's not a surprise.
Yeah.
We've got the formal meeting scheduled.
Yeah.
We've got a draft written down performance improvement plan.
We do the homework before we go to the meeting.
We do the homework and we talk about it with them. And the final agreement ends up being a collaborative effort. We talked about that and that it should be a positive experience. So Larry, what's the fifth thing we think in this process?
Well, this should also be something you walk into the meeting with, and that is that you actually have some kind of documentation that formalizes this. Hey, we met on this date. Here's the topic. Here's the plan moving forward. Here are the consequences should we not meet these expectations, and then you both sign it. And of course, you want to make sure that your HR professional has reviewed this thing so that you are compliant with whatever your state rules and regulations are regarding this, right? So having a written document is probably the next step.
Yeah. I think it's a smart idea if you have those HR resources to consult with them.
Yeah,
for sure, throughout this whole process. Yeah. And then, so then I think maybe the last tip we can give you, because hopefully this agreement has got, hey, we're going to take a review of this in a week or 2 weeks or a month or, whatever schedule you decide upon. But I think it's important to do a brief meeting with them or check in, maybe just a few days after this and see how it's going. Meaning after you both signed it and just to see, how the person is feeling, how if there's any progress being made.
Right.
And you'll get an idea of if your plan is really going to be effective or not, probably pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I would encourage you, this is the time where you, as the leader of the organization, need to show up like it matters. Offer them spotlight coaching, offer them words of encouragement.
Right.
You've got this. You can do this. All right. We wouldn't have brought you into the organization if we didn't think you could do this. Right. That kind of thing. I believe in you. If you do, obviously don't lie to them. Don't, say, hey, we're going to get through this. And, if you know in your head, they're not going to.
Yes.
But this is an opportunity to actually check in. Do not, I'm just going to tell you, do not say, hey, you're going to go on to a 90-day probationary period and you don't check in with them until day number 89.
Yeah.
That is immoral. It's wrong. Don't do that. And Dave, this might be just a time to say, hey, if you're, you find this on YouTube, I'd love to hear what comments do you have about this? What's worked for you when you've had to counsel somebody, put them on probation? What mistakes have you made? I'd love to hear those as well. We oftentimes learn more from our mistakes than we do from our victories and from our successes, right? What mistakes have you made? If you're part of the victory program that Dave and I run, or you're part of the HireMyVA program, go to the community and say, hey, I've got this challenge and I think I need to put this person on probation. What should I do? And we can all kind of chime in and give you some feedback there as well. One of the most powerful parts of the victory in the HireMyVA programs is the community. Go there as well. But we're in this together. None of us have the answers for all of the problems. So we're not going to fit that into one video, but the community and the comment sections are great ways to participate.
Yeah. We've seen people coming in, asking early some questions about, what do they do in this situation? And one of the key things about it is coming in early in the process. So don't wait till you're like, oh, I'm so fed up with person A. It may end up being too late. Come in early when you sense this and get our thoughts and our advice. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The great thing is
the community. Yeah.
That in the community, and we know that some of the folks who listen to these, we've got HR professionals, we've got managers and leaders who have led hundreds and thousands. That's right. Hundreds and thousands of team members that have been through this before. There's lots of years of experience. So there's no need for you to feel alone on this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Shall we put a bow on this and wrap it up?
There you go.
All right, let's do that. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Larry, for joining me too.
Well, thank you, handsome Dave. You too.
Well, remember, folks, building a team is the way to reclaim your freedom. We are here to help you. So 3 things we'd love for you guys to do. 1, subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already done so. Give us a rating. We'd love a 5-star, but just give us any kind of rating or leave a comment below this video, as Larry talked about. Let us know what you're struggling with or where you've been successful. Have you had to put somebody on probation or not? Are you thinking about it? Just go ahead and put something in there, because it will really help the algorithms and get us more views, because I think what we're doing here is awesome and we're helping folks.
That's right.
And then the third thing is go to HireMyVA.com for more information on our course and community, because even without experience, you'll learn how to prepare for, hire, and thrive with virtual assistants. Larry and I have helped a lot of folks, and we'd love to help you too. So again, just go to HireMyVA.com for more information.
That's right. Hey, if you are a leader, an entrepreneur, a high achiever, we're glad that you're out there making an impact on the world. But do yourself a favor, do the world a favor. Go do something significant today. All right, my friends, we love you. God bless you. God keep you. God hold you. All right, go get them.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.